People are often concerned about the way in which time is recorded. Be simple. Time, as you know it, is measured in relationship to different cosmic bodies. When you measure a year as the amount of sequential time passing as the Earth goes a full rotation around the sun, you are making a choice to measure time in relationship to the Earth. This may be obvious, but it's important to recognize that this is a choice, and this choice has little to nothing to do with what is occurring on another planetary body. When you struggle between the influence of different forces, such as the moon and the Earth's rotation around the sun, you are making a choice of what to prioritize. When you make such a choice, you get results in relationship to where you begin. There is no specific way to tell time by prioritizing both the moon and the Earth. You must make a choice between them. And yet, when you do, certain fundamental truths unveil themselves. There has long been a tension between the cyclical transformation of the Earth's relationship to the stars and the advent of different celestial seasons. When you make a choice to measure the rotation of the Earth around the sun in relationship to 12 forces, you tune in to 12 forces. Make no mistake, they do exist, and yet you have made a choice that is by no means absolute. If you were to tune in to 13 forces, you would align yourself with a different range of energy, and this different range of energy would unveil a vastly different relationship to the cosmos. This is a simple shift, and it has dire consequences, or profoundly exciting consequences, depending on your intentions. 13. This number is present in the Fibonacci sequence, which is allowing you to tune into a complete octave of energy. This is of no small consequence. When you remain tuned to 12, you cannot extend beyond an entire octave of energy. This predisposes you to stay within a certain range and live your conscious life within this range. When you give yourself access to this slight increase, you are enabling your consciousness to escape the boundaries in which the more finite system existed. Thus, human beings, by remaining within cycles of 12 for extended periods of time, have grounded your consciousness within a specific range that stays stable and returns to itself. In essence, unbeknownst to you, you are teaching yourself not to leave. When you retune to the number 13, you are in essence connecting the first and the last in this cycle. When you connect the first and the last, you provide yourself an opportunity to extend beyond where you are. And thus, if you are to break up the astronomical cycles into 13 distinct phases, you will teach yourself how to tune in a way that will leave the Earth. The moon cycle itself exists in between. When you choose to align yourself with the moon cycle, you periodically connect to 13 cycles and 12 cycles, back and forth. This is of no small consequence. The result is that you are in proximity to a cycle that will systematically attune you to the cosmos. Thus, by tuning to a calendar that is aligned with the moon, you link your consciousness more closely to a universal consciousness. And yet, because it is not complete, the 13 phases extend beyond the confines of a solar year. And thus, you are in a better position to broker the two systems. If you want to stay on the earth and to remain focused heavily within your body, it is far more preferable to remain within a cycle of 12. Thus, consistently break the year, the solar year, down into 12 phases and stay with them. Measure time with them. Measure your life in relation to them. You will tune into the actual presence of these 12 forces, and you will remain aligned with life on Earth. If you are more interested in leaving, recognize the way in which these cycles compress and a 13th is added. And as you do, tune yourself into a more cosmic consciousness, notably present during the final cycle. It is most appropriate to measure these cycles when the Earth is closest to the galactic center. Allow yourself to transition fully around the sun, and in the phase where returning to this proximity is closest, be most aware. Commit much of your attention to recognizing the way in which your consciousness has the opportunity to attune with the galactic consciousness. During this time, you will find memories of yourself beyond Earth time to be more accessible. You will find other beings who are heavily attuned to a more galactic consciousness are more accessible. Make use of this connection. Make strong emphasis of your memories, and use the opportunity to make new choices about where you will go when you die. The moon cycles are purposefully out of harmony with the solar cycle. This cognitive dissonance is always influencing you. When the moon makes a full rotation around the Earth, it has consequential influence on your life. And yet the Earth is concurrently moving around the sun, and this cycle is happening at the same time. It is up to you which you prioritize. When you prioritize the moon cycle, you are not committing to leaving, but you are committing to being present on the Earth in a way that maintains a more conscious awareness of consciousness beyond the Earth. It's an extremely influential choice. If you attune yourself to the moon in this way, and you choose to emphasize galactic consciousness, emphasize the moon cycle that is closest to the galactic center. Also, make note of the moon cycle that is furthest from the galactic center, along with the time when the Earth is pointed away from that galactic center. At this time, you are closest to the edge of this galactic core. Unique opportunities in consciousness exist. When you are closest to the center, a new beginning emerges. When you are furthest from the center, something else happens that is deserving of your attention. The way in which you understand your relationship to the rest of the universe has a dramatic impact on your ability to connect. When you presuppose that the foundational perspective is of your body, of this current life, you miss an enormous range of opportunity to connect with everything else. The most appropriate relationship to engage with is to recognize shifts in scale. If you were to consider moving from one star to another star from within the perspective of your earthly body, there are a finite and extremely specific range of opportunities for how to travel between them. However, when you consider that your consciousness is capable of changing scale dramatically, you recognize that your awareness of your own presence shifts in scale in the same measure. Thus, your consciousness becomes, first, from your body, then as big as the earth, then as big as the sun, then towards as big as the galaxy. When you recognize these shifts in scales, you will begin to recognize resting places in between these scale shifts. Your ability to navigate the distance from where you are towards different ranges of scale allows you to explore more further. Yet, all you know is in relationship to what you remember at the moment. As you detach yourself from your current mooring, you may lose much of your will and your ability to make changes. Thus, it is not preferable to seek absolute ability to explore immediately. Gain relationship to the initial shifts in scale first. From these shifts in scale, recognize how your ability to explore has extended. Mostly, this means that it is far easier to move between planets than it is to move between galaxies. It is also far easier to move between stars than to move between galaxies. Thus, to move between planets in your current solar system, first, extend your consciousness to the size of the Earth. Recognize your relationship to the size of the sun without going there. And then shift back down into the size of another planet. This transition is specific. It takes skill to navigate. If you do not practice it, attempting to extend your consciousness to the size of the galaxy you are currently in may not work well. It is possible to launch yourself there prematurely, and when you do, it will be increasingly difficult to return with any measure of what you may call sanity. Thus, restrain your desire to explore until you navigate the initial steps. Being a part of creating a new Atlantean type civilization involves embracing the cyclical nature of reality on Earth. The Earth herself creates multiple cyclical rules for civilizations, or something you might call that. This goes in consistent patterns, and yet each cycle is unique. By no means does the story of what you know of as life on Earth repeat itself exactly. The intentions themselves transform, meaning sometimes a far broader range of beings are invited to this planet than other times. When you allow yourself to recognize that this is how it has always worked, you begin to recognize the way in which your current cycle exists in relation to the Earth herself. You are one of many stories. And yet, the consistency is in her love of creating a home. Thus, at the peak moments when the greatest number of beings are invited to participate in shaping reality, a wide range of destruction always exists. When this occurs, many species and the consciousness that grounds them leave. A wide range of beings from other types of conscious reality are invited and offered roles within what you would call a species on Earth. From within this acceptance, they are occasionally granted the opportunity to explore other species. Multiple concurrent relationships to reality are existing at the same time, and only a more specific range of beings are allowed to navigate between them. This is because a very specific set of intentions is always in play. That specific set of intentions can best be understood as Gaia's desire to create a story. When she creates a story, she has different wants. Sometimes she wants to introduce a wide range of beings to each other. Sometimes she has a specific urge to create conscious life here on Earth around certain very inherently plausible phenomena. Thus, under some circumstances, the beings that are invited to the planet have a dramatic impact on the global presence. They influence the Earth herself, the earth, the rock, the water. They reshape the planet. In other circumstances, the presence has a far less dramatic impact on the material realities here. And instead, consciousness has been designed repeatedly to emphasize growth on different levels. The greater purpose to this range of possibilities is difficult to explain from the perspective that you are in. Nonetheless, the next cycle typically begins in a similar way. A wide range of beings are invited. A smaller number of them agree to stay. Those who stay are granted an increasingly specific range of opportunities. They succeed or fail, are given further opportunity to leave or to invest with a deeper range of commitment. Eventually, a much smaller range of beings remain. When they do, life is far richer. The greatest blessings of being here are more readily apparent and much easier to appreciate. From within this experience, she regathers those who have been most committed to create the seed of a future cycle. This seed has a different kind of presence than you might expect. It is both specific and typically completely uncompetitive. From your perspective, it is a test, and yet, in many ways, it is the end result of the past cycle. The end result, the best gift, the richest opportunity for fulfilling her initial vision of that cycle, is extraordinarily beautiful. That is what Atlantis was. Atlantis was the fulfillment of a previous cycle, the culmination of regathering those beings who had been most committed through a long phase of reality. Once they regathered, they created an extraordinary and beautiful will to live together. They influenced material reality, but with great respect for what impact they had. Within this respect, the cherishing of life on Earth was easy and deep. All cycles come to an end. There was no tragedy in the ending of that cycle. It was both intentional and the seed for the possibility of the future. And yet it was completely impossible for this seed to grow without inviting a wide range of beings to come again. When they arrived, they participated in dramatically reducing the global vibration. This was purposeful. The idea, the dream, was to take a seed of potential, such as Atlantis was, and then create it much more broadly in conscious form, and yet in balance between multiple different civilizations. It was not possible to accomplish this without destroying what had come before. The wide range of beings exist. They live out the extraordinary range of opportunities in multiple cultures. Gradually, many beings agree to stay, and many more agree to leave. As they agree to leave, they go. And they go often in an unpleasant way, depending upon how respectfully they relate to life here. The more they care, the better they leave. And increasingly, their level of care exposes them to the depth of beauty, of dreaming, of staying, and then they are induced to make that choice. If this is you, understand you cannot agree once. You must agree repeatedly. The repetition of the offer is exactly what makes it possible. You must repeatedly attune with the potential of the future to become a part of it. This future will take quite a while in the making. It begins with agreeing to participate in cleaning up the mess. It is both inherently unfair, both for you and against you. On one level, you are cleaning up the mess left by many beings who don't respect the damage they've caused. And yet on another level, they have no idea the beauty they leave behind. They are leaving the raw, conscious material in the form of spirit for creating a much better life here on Earth. When you agree to participate in cleaning up both their material mess and the spiritual mess they left in human culture, you commit to staying, and you earn the opportunity to stay with increasing levels of joy and deep satisfaction. Thus, evaluate the options, the practical options you have in front of you to live well on Earth. Choose to care, for in the process of caring about what you do, participating in cleaning up the spiritual and physical messes, and living out a more joyful life, you increasingly expose yourself to a more conscious recognition of the opportunities that will rest in the future. And in every case, this future rests beyond the confines of this life that you are in. In order to explore beyond your body, you need to most clearly answer the simple question, why do you want to leave your body? When your desire to leave your body is born of a desire to escape the karmic forces that exist, that you have shaped, that you carry within your body within this lifetime, your ability to leave will be severely restricted, and the force with which you will be returned to your body when you do succeed in leaving will be unpleasant. In this unpleasantness, you will often be simply numb, and thus you will be restricted in your ability to retain an awareness from the dream time explorations you choose to embrace. Nonetheless, your capacity to leave and return to your body is built in. The center at the top of your forehead allows you, enables you to leave the cycle of energy centers from your root to your crown. By focusing here, you detune from your heart. When you detune from your heart effectively, you can learn to lucidly leave your body and explore. The best way to prepare yourself to do this well is to meditate on this center. Do breathing exercises designed to focus this center. If you choose to accentuate the process, use the key ring cycle in reverse. 5 steps, then return to the center at the top of your forehead. Do it repeatedly. Then spend more time at the top of your forehead. By meditating here, you put yourself in a good position to leave. It will be most effective to do this before sleep. If you cleanse yourself with the opposite cycle, you are communicating your intention to dampen energy within your body and accentuate energy leaving your body. When you focus on the center at the top of your forehead, you communicate that you are drawing your consciousness through a channel designed to help you let go of physical material consciousness. Then go to sleep. If you set intentions clearly for how you would like to explore during the process of this meditation, it will be most likely that they will create themselves during the course of your dreaming. To the extent that this does not work well, your dreams will illuminate the forces, the choices, the dramas, the pain that you need to work with in order to cleanse yourself. These channels are blocked by trauma and bad choices. When you address both of these forces within your life, you increasingly relieve the baggage that keeps you wedded to your body. I encourage you not to resent this process. Your overall goal is about having a good life, far more than you may consciously agree to think. Having a good life is rarely accentuated dramatically by consistently leaving your life. Thus, if you are to use your ability to leave your body effectively, make sure you continually reinvest in addressing your actual challenges and facing them honestly, even when they are unpleasant. It is perfectly possible to measure the intensity of the energy you emit in relationship to other people. There are specific thresholds that matter. Certain built-in restrictions prevent human beings from exploring life in ways that are detrimental to the greater community. Certain communities exist that hold space for different levels of expression. Certain roles within communities are traditional for extended periods of time, and they allow life to remain stable within different groups of people. If you want to be more consciously aware of where you rest in such dynamics, learn to feel it. If you learn to feel it, you will learn to receive information from your system itself. It is more important that you develop a relationship to the forces that you create than that you emphasize your difference in relation to other people. Nonetheless, specific thresholds do matter. When you are not fully activated, you essentially have large portions of potential energy pitted against themselves to create stasis within yourself. This can be most easily measured in your root by focusing on the root center and breathing with it. You can learn to attune your conscious mind to what is happening here. This will immediately begin to communicate to you what is trapped and what is not. This will lead you to reveal what forces you are prepared to unleash. Unleashing a force involves relieving the restriction and balancing it with the potential of the past. This invariably leads you to reconnect with memories of other lifetimes. When you reconnect with memories of other lifetimes, you are awakening some of the forces that were present in those lifetimes, which could be extremely confusing. And yet, there are resting places that involved activating energies in which your consciousness may mean stable. When you remain stable, you may gain access to remembering different states, different ways of being that you embodied in other lifetimes, and yet you will rest in an energy that does fit within the world that you are alive within right now. In order for this to be possible, you must learn to remain calm as you awaken extremes. The best way to do this is to look at exactly the limits of your current life expression and play with them. Recognize what happens when you push the limits of exercise, creativity, intellectual exploration. This may seem vague, and yet it is the only way to extend your limits. And when you are done, you will learn a more conscious relationship with what happens when you extend your limits. Do you evoke more energy in a manner that is consistently retainable? If you simply push your limits, fry yourself, and are non-functional for extended periods of time, you will not actually increase your overall presence. If you push your limits, pay attention to what you learn, integrate it, and gradually recognize an increase in strength. This will reflect itself in all areas whenever it is healthy. Meaning, you will think more clearly when you gain strength physically, when you gain strength physically in a manner that is healthy. When you gain strength physically in a manner that is healthy and you think more clearly, you will feel more openly. This often results in strong emotional expressions that you must learn to temper and balance. If you do not effectively learn to temper and balance them, they will circle around and undermine your physical strength and cloud your thinking. Thus, if you wish to extend a basic limit of how much light you emit into the world around you, you must intentionally bear the will to face every challenge that awakens as you do. Because any of the specific challenges you awaken along the way will undermine your overall vibrancy. And when this is taken into account, you will learn to feel how strong you are. And you will learn to feel in relationship to other people. The simplest measure is less, equal, and more. When you enter or leave the presence of another being, you will be able to recognize, are they referencing reality in relationship to a strength from within you that is greater than their own strength? Are they in balance, meaning they are relatively inspired by your presence and yet not threatened by it, and both of you can inspire each other at the same time? Or are they dominant, meaning they evoke within you a fear of being subsumed potentially, or a security in being held down in a manner perhaps you like? Either way, you will be able to recognize the introduction of their consciousness by the presence of their energy. And as you do, you will learn to feel the changes in your own felt sense. If you were striving to measure yourself in a more absolute way, fitting into different cycles, understand that everyone is not present in the same manner. Thus, you may actually inappropriately measure yourself in relation to others in a way that does not work. I encourage you to return to yourself. Learn to recognize what your energy field is emitting. Learn to recognize what it is telling you about what you need to contend with. Contend with it and find balance. When a being approaches the sun, they are actually typically approaching the sun from within an order of magnitude that is beyond scale of planets. Thus, essentially, you are bigger than the sun, getting smaller. As you approach in this way, you do not have to consider being in line between the planets. Thus, you don't necessarily get closer to the further planets, because proximity is more accurately measured by vibration. Vibration is measured by harmony, and where you fit in is not necessarily linear. Thus, you approach the sun with a certain range of experience that you experienced on other systems. The sun herself puts you in relationship to the planets that most specifically hold space for such vibration. Once you are present, incarnated within a solar place, typically a planet, you have a presence within the solar system, and you have an entirely different relationship to this reality. From this point, you are actually more strongly influenced by your proximity as understood physically. This means that it is easier for you to tune into Mars and to Venus than it is for you to tune into Mercury or Ceres. Make no mistake, you can transcend this challenge, but it takes more effort than it's worth. To begin with, recognize the influence that these planets have over you. By noting when they are close and when they are far, you will gain a lot of insight into who you are. Life can be understood in a simple way. Mars is colder. It is further from the Earth. Venus is hotter. It is closer to the sun. When you recognize how these forces play out, you learn a lot about yourself. If the presence of Mars has a negative influence on you, you both have something to learn from what it is telling you and the indication that you may have more to learn from going closer to the sun. Thus, rather than struggling with the negativity that you experience in relationship to this planet, emphasize your relationship to Venus. When you do this, you will expose the calling that you share beyond what you know of as this life. Make no mistake, when you arrived at this star that you know of as soul, you engaged in a dramatically different understanding of reality. When you did that, you had some degree of negotiation about what you would do here. Your presence on Earth is only a part of what you are doing here. Your presence within the space of the sun, extending beyond the bodies of rock that orbit this fire. Your presence within this sphere matters. And you must take account of all of the steps within this process. Thus, when you are furthest from the influence of a planet, and when you are closest to the influence of a planet, are notable times. When you are furthest from the influence of a planet, it is most appropriate to take stock of your negative interactions in relation to that body and try to put yourself in a better position to deal with them well. However, it is also, and more importantly, the best time for you to think of a better place for you to put your attention. Thus, imagine that you are moving your home from one place to another. You want everything of value from where it used to be, and yet you must take stock of the effort required to move it from one place to another. Overall, when you move between planets in this system, it is worth it to return, reclaim what you are, and bring it back. But this might be a valuable work to extend over a great range of time. Consider, it is most important that you emphasize where your new home is than where your old home was. If you have left behind something that haunts you, it is important to learn to diminish the fear that you may experience in relationship to that force. Do not be ashamed. Simply recognize that a colder place can have a profound influence over what you are, and the colder place that is closer to where you are has a more profound influence than the ones that are far away. Thus, reclaiming what you are from where you were can have a magnificent impact on being here. Unraveling your relationship to past lifetimes is a dramatic experience. You must understand to begin with that in many ways you actually live entire lifetimes in order to forget them. Multiple ranges of life experience within human timelines exist almost entirely to be forgotten, meaning you brought something, an energy of experience, a karma, to this place, and it is not desirable to continue it. It is both unpleasant and potentially magnetic in a way that is detrimental, meaning you like it, but you wish you didn't like it. As a result, it's important not to try to grip too tightly to other lifetimes. That is why you forget. You forget so you can be entirely present in a new experience. Emphasize it and invest your attention and your life force in what you are creating now. From within this perspective, it can often be difficult to register the importance of the overall dynamic. This means that you can't see why the plan is working the way it is. And when you expose yourself to one specific other lifetime, it will typically not make sense how these two experiences fit in to a bigger plan. And yet, the fundamental trust that the entire process works is necessary in order to learn more. Functionally, this means as you expose yourself to the edge of another lifetime, reach into it. Attempt to meditate and focus upon the key elements of it that you remember. Ask questions. Be open to the answers and what they reveal about you and what you may need to learn now. And respect the blockages. This might not come easily, and yet it matters deeply. If something is blocked to you, exploring around it is okay. But throwing yourself against the barrier may preclude you recognizing that there is other work to do that is more important, and that your own consciousness is attempting to redirect the focus of your attention. Thus, sometimes you are shown exactly what you need to know about another lifetime and no more. As soon as the boundary of this specific exposure are given to you, there is generally a light that awakens within you that draws you towards another aspect of your other life. When you allow it to guide you, it typically becomes a portal, a window into an entirely different lifetime where it is more important for you to gain focus. Often, it is most important that you learn to recognize the connection between pattern trends. Thus, you will learn about a death, and then another death, and then another death in multiple lifetimes before you will learn about your personality within each of these lifetimes. You will learn about the failure you make in one context, and then the failure you make in another context, and then have it exposed to you. How you were essentially learning to navigate pattern dynamics in a manner that would allow you to succeed in an entirely different context. The result of this kind of exploration indicates that if you want to have a broader memory of multiple lifetimes, you must extend more broadly before you overemphasize specifics in one lifetime. Allow this process to teach you what is most important for you to learn. Too specific a focus on any particular goal will block you from understanding how to refocus your attention in the manner that you are being guided to learn. If you would like to learn more about questions people have asked Thoth through me, please visit the playlist Questions with Thoth. If you would like to learn more from his channelings, please visit the Channelings from Thoth playlist.